Hello, this is Evan Rogers coming at you with the WA Particle number 1, What You Talking About, with EvansEasyJapanese.com. Here we're going to be talking about the WA particle. This is one of the most tricky particles in the Japanese language because it doesn't really exist in English the way it does in Japanese. So let's go ahead and start looking at the WA particle. Woo! The WA particle number 1. Before we begin, there really is only one WA particle, so this is kind of misleading to call it number 1. To understand what it means and how it's used, the WA particle that is, it's best to break it down into different functions. However, each of these functions are the same function. They just sort of feel different in English a little bit. We're quote-unquote chunking the WA particle up to... Oh, we're chunking the WA particle up in order to aid in comprehension. Fun fact, when I was typing this, I found out that AIDE is a noun, as in a person who aids you, and then AID is actually the verb. I didn't know that. Anyway, aid in comprehension. There's only one wa, and there's only one function, but it helps English speakers to hear different quote-unquote functions to get a better feel for it. See, we're gonna chunk it. Yeah, that's hilarious that I did that, isn't it? Look, it's super chunky. And I guess crunchy as well. Okay, crunchy peanut butter? I'm allergic to peanuts, but I mean, do you want crunchy peanut butter? Is that a thing that people want? Let me know in the comments. I have no idea if that's a thing people would want, because that would kill me. Alright, the WA particle number 1 continuing. Before we begin, yeah, this is a common thing that I do to my students. Think of the word a or the word un. Tell me what that means. So right now you're thinking in your head, a chicken. Well, there's one chicken. Okay, there's one chicken. Yeah, and I guess we're talking about chickens. Okay, so the word a and un means one. So I could say the one chicken. Wait, but then I just used the word the. Notice the second point. Now try to explain the word the in contrast with the word a or un. Okay, well, the word the apple. Oh, it's like the apple, the apple that, like, we all know what we're talking about. Oh, that's right, it's a definitive article. It tells us exactly which one we're talking about, and in fact, it says the one that we all know, the noun that we're all familiar with. Whereas a is an indefinite particle. It literally means, in all of the universe, a single whatever it is we're talking about. So when you say the word a chicken, you're saying, out of all the chickens in the universe, I'm talking about just this one of them. And even the word this shouldn't have been in there. So before we begin, we need to understand that small words... Oh man, look at the mouse action. This is so awesome. Small words can have big meanings. I put down lulls here because it's really tricky. If you've never thought about this before, a and the have horrendously, amazingly big meanings, and yet they're so small. Small words have big meanings. A means out of everything in the universe, we're talking about a single one of them. And the word the means the one that we're all familiar with. So if I were to say, the chicken is fat, you'd be like, wait, which chicken? I don't know what chicken we're talking about. You used the incorrectly. And I said, a chicken is fat. You say, well, not all chickens are fat, but I guess that one in particular happens to be. Anyway, that's what those two words mean. So I hope that we can see that small words have big meanings. English doesn't have a wa particle. Or should I say the wa particle? Dun dun dun! Okay. Or anything therein. There's nothing that really means wa in English. The take on expressing ideas in Japanese is a bit different than in English. This is an important thing to think about, Mr. English speaker. You're all like, I know how to communicate an idea. I just say words and then communication happens. You don't realize this has happened to you until you start speaking a different language. But your take on how to express an idea, like look at something in your room and tell me about it. Obviously I can't hear you, but think about something in your room and think about how you're going to express that. Okay, so let's say that you have a book in your room. I have a book. I am the one who is doing the having. The book is a thing that is had, and had is a verb. In Japanese, you could say a similar sentence. Watashi wa hon o motteru. You could also say hon ga arimasu. Hon ga arimasu literally means a book exists. And if you put a watashi wa in front of it, watashi wa hon ga arimasu. Regarding me, a book exists, which sounds insane to an English speaker, but you need to understand that that is a way of communicating an idea, making the thing that exists as a subject of the sentence. It's a different way to communicate the same idea. So just be aware that the take on expressing ideas in Japanese is a bit different than in English. The languages are different. The take on what's happening is different than what you're used to. So sorry, bro. Get used to it. What you talking about? So I had to add the picture of, is that Gary Coleman? What you talking about, Willis? Yeah, catchphrases. That's all I have to say about that. The wa particle is generally translated as the subject or the topic of a sentence. But wait, don't those words mean the same thing? I mean, if we're talking about a subject, isn't it the topic? No, but it could be the subject of the sentence. Yeah, well, that's not what we mean. The ga particle is actually the subject of the sentence. Well, then it's a topic. Well, not all sentences have topics. Or, I mean, do you really have to say, like, when you're talking in science, do we really have to say, like, chemistry wa, water is a chemical, chemistry wa? No, so this is a very vague meaning. I don't like translating it as a subject of the topic, but I feel like the topic is the best way to give it a one-word name. So you're gonna hear me reference it as the topic in the future. But let me just point out, it's more than the subject. It's more than the topic. It's more than that. It answers the question, what you talking about? The wa particle number 1, what you talking about? The wa particle serves the purpose of definitively answering the question to what does this sentence apply? To what does this sentence apply? Is answered by the wa particle. So remember when I gave you that sentence, watashi wa hon ga arimasu? Hon ga arimasu literally means book exists. We don't know how many or what kind of a book or anything like that. We just say book exists. Most likely we're saying that there is a book. A book is existing. And then we said watashi wa before it. So what does book exist what does a book exist apply to? It applies to me. Regarding me, what am I talking about? I'm talking about me. Books exist. So a bastardized translation of that is I have a book. The wa particle can be the subject, the object, or like I said earlier, the topic. In fact, it can be more than that, but just to keep it simple in the beginning, we can use it as the subject part, or as the instead of the ga particle, or instead of the o particle, we can use it instead of the subject or the object. Here's some examples. The wa particle, number 1. Watashi wa, in case you can't read kanji, just, go with it. This is watashi wa cheeseburger o tabemasu. This is the kanji for tabemasu. It means to eat. Cheeseburgers are cheeseburgers. Hopefully you figured that one out. Watashi means me/I. Okay, so watashi wa cheeseburger o tabemasu. The o particle, in case you haven't watched that video yet, it's going to be up soon, references to what is being eaten. What is the thing that's getting eaten? And then notice how watashi wa, in that sentence we're saying, I eat cheeseburgers. So he's the subject. Notice how we didn't use the ga particle. We can use the wa instead of the ga. It has a slightly different meaning. So what I was trying to point out is this sentence can mean both I eat cheeseburgers and, are we talking about me? An unidentified subject eats cheeseburgers. This sentence does have two meanings. I eat cheeseburgers definitely is a translation of this sentence, no problems. But we're also could be saying, me? Are you talking about me? Well, something that we're not saying eats cheeseburgers. We could say watashi wa, then throw like another noun in there and say ga cheeseburger tabemasu, and it'd be a really weird way of saying it, but are you talking about me? Inu, I don't know, what's your dog's name? It'd be a weird sentence. I don't want to dwell on it too long because it'd be a very weird sentence, but it would exist. You could use a watashi wa, like inu ga cheeseburger tabemasu. It'd be a weird sentence, like, we're talking about me? Well, the dog eats a cheeseburger. So once again, the wa particle isn't the subject always. I want to point that out. In this sentence, it is the subject most likely. Most likely, I eat cheeseburgers is the most accurate translation. But there could be a really weird situation where we say, are we talking about me? Well, an unidentified subject eats cheeseburgers. So just be aware that the ga particle is a subject marker and the wa can sometimes be used as a subject marker. Generally, if there's no ga, or if the subject is not already specified in the sentence, wa is the subject. In the next slide, we have cheeseburger wa tabemasu. This sentence could literally mean two things once again. It could be the subject, we're not exactly sure. It could mean cheeseburgers eat, which, I mean, honestly, that doesn't make much sense unless you're talking about some crazy cheeseburger land where cheeseburgers rise up against their human overlords and eat. Or more likely, it could mean, are we talking about cheeseburgers? Well, an unidentified subject, most likely the speaker, eats them. Most likely what this sentence is saying is, I eat cheeseburgers at least. Are we talking about cheeseburgers? Yeah, I eat them. Most likely the subject is I. However, we're not sure. It's unidentified. Whatever the subject is, we're not sure. Like, out of context, this sentence could mean thousands of different things. In context, it most likely means I eat cheeseburgers, at the very least. Following this sentence, you might say like, cheeseburger wa tabemasu, pizza wa tabemasen. I eat cheeseburgers. I don't eat pizzas. Okay. In English, we need subjects in every sentence. It's actually kind of annoying and tedious. In Japanese, we don't need subjects in every sentence, and this is an example of one of them. Unless you take the first translation. I guess technically there is a subject, just if there were a subject, it'd be cheeseburgers eat against their human overlords. What's that TV show with the blue jay and the raccoon? I just saw one yesterday where like a bunch of hot dogs jumped out and started eating the people. And then they sprayed mustard on them, and then they started eating each other. Anyway, that'd be an example of when this sentence right here would be more useful. Wait, are you talking about the hot dogs were eating people? Hi, hot dog wa tabemashita yo. Whoa, really? The hot dogs were eating the people? That would be an example of when the wa particle would be the subject in that sentence. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, and isn't it like Regular Show? Is that the name of it? There's another show where it's like a blue bunny and then there's like a orange goldfish. That's a fun show too. Alright, the wa particle continuing. Cheeseburger wa tabemasen. This sentence can mean both. Cheeseburgers, at least, don't eat, which is once again a strange sentence. Well, we're talking about cheeseburgers? They don't eat. It's like, okay, thanks for informing me of that mindlessly idiotic statement that doesn't need to be expressed to anyone. Or it could also mean an unidentified subject, which is most likely the speaker, doesn't... This shouldn't be like... Oh, no. Alright, let's continue on. We got the wa particle number 1. Cheeseburger wa tabemasen. This sentence can mean both. Cheeseburgers, at least, don't eat. Which, once again, doesn't make any sense. Or, I mean, it's a mindlessly... Why bother expressing this fact? Well, you know, cheeseburgers, they don't eat. Oh, it's like, oh, man, are you serious? Well, I guess we know that the cheeseburger wasn't the criminal. Like, it doesn't need to be said. Excuse me, I just coughed over my own laughter. Over a joke that I just made, because I'm that stupid. Alright, and it could also mean, most likely it would mean, an unidentified subject, most likely the speaker, doesn't eat cheeseburgers, at the very least. They might eat other things, but the tabemasen is being applied directly to... what is doesn't eat being... Doesn't? Am I Canadian? No, I'm not. What does doesn't eat being applied to? It's being applied to cheeseburgers and nothing else. See how we have this sentence right here, tabemasen? That's sort of a sentence in and of itself. We're talking about not eating. What isn't eaten and or what doesn't eat? We're talking specifically and only about cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers don't get eaten, so to speak. Once again, I told you that we don't need to express subjects in this sentence. Most likely the subject is watashi. So watashi ga tabemasen. I don't eat. What don't I eat? I don't eat cheeseburgers. That's the function of this wa particle. We have a sentence right here, tabemasen, which has a secret subject, watashi wa. And this, watashi ga, I should say, excuse me. Watashi ga tabemasen. I don't eat. What is I don't eat being applied to? It's being applied to cheeseburger. Once again, this tells us what we're talking about. What you talking about, Willis? Or what you talking about, Ebenezer Japanese? So an unidentified subject, most likely the speaker, doesn't eat cheeseburgers at the very least, but they might eat other things. This wa particle shows us that we're talking about cheeseburgers and nothing else. Maybe there are some other things he does eat. Whatever it is that we're talking about, they don't eat cheeseburgers at the very least. At the very least, we don't eat cheeseburgers. Okay. The wa particle number 1 continuing. Watashi wa cheeseburger ga suki desu. Okay. Everyone and their sister translates suki desu as like. That is incorrect. Let's deal with this right here and right now. Sorry, let me read this. In case you don't know kanji, this is watashi. We should have already learned that. Cheeseburger is obviously cheeseburger. Ga is the subject particle, which will be explained in a different video. So this is suki desu. What does suki mean? Great question. I'm not sure if I can even communicate what it means in English. It's an impossible thing to translate properly. Like if you want to do a 100% literal translation, notice how we have the word des after it. That word literally means is. It's the quote-unquote copula. Almost every language has one. I don't know every language, but most likely every language does have one. It means x is y. X equals y. So, watashi wa, is that the subject? No, ga is the subject. Cheeseburger is equivalent to whatever suki means. Suki means... Now, if it translates to, the closest translation we can get in English is I like cheeseburgers or cheeseburgers are liked. Technically, we have to translate this like as enjoyable? Like having related feeling? Man, cheeseburgers are like feeling existing. It's very impossible to translate this sentence perfectly. This sentence can really only have one meaning, although two flavors. So cheeseburgers ga suki desu means cheeseburgers are liked to an extent. It's not passive, so I don't want to translate this that way. Let me do this one more time. Cheeseburger ga suki desu literally means cheeseburgers are like having emotion related adjective. To what does this quote unquote I like cheeseburgers apply? Well, it's applying to me, and I just added a subject. This sentence is so frustrating for an English speaker to translate properly. Cheeseburgers are liked, quote unquote. To what does cheeseburgers are liked apply to? Well, it applies to watashi. Watashi is the thing that is like cheeseburgers. And I don't mean like as in is similar to, I mean like as in if we could turn the verb like into an adjective. Watashi wa cheeseburger ga suki desu. Man, suki is a crazy word. Okay, so I like cheeseburgers is the closest and best we can do in English, although it's grammatically incorrect because this is an adjective, not a verb. Notice how English forces the subject to be wa. Because ga is the real subject in Japanese, and it exists in a likable fashion, and it is in a likable fashion, we need to know what is this sentence applying to. This sentence is applying to watashi. Watashi wa cheeseburger ga suki desu. This is why people translate it as a subject. In fact, in my opening video, when I first started this website, I made a video for the wa particle, and I introduced it as a subject. And I got so many people who were like, "That's not what it means. God, you're an idiot. God." And I was like, well, right. We're going to start off learning it this way because you can clearly see it does mean that. And anyway, so that's why I'm doing this video now to clarify things. So it could also mean, are we talking about me? Cheeseburgers are enjoyable. Notice how those two sentences do mean the same thing. However, they have a slightly different flavor. You talk about me? Cheeseburgers be enjoyable, yo. It's funny if you literally translate Japanese, it almost sounds like gangstas. Cheeseburgers be because it's a be verb, and are only exists in English because we have plurality, and Japanese doesn't have it to the extent that English does. So technically, this literally means cheeseburgers be enjoyable. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Ga shows us the subject, which is cheeseburger, and this forces us to examine the fact that ski is an adjective and the verb is. So cheeseburgers is like, having, feeling, emotion. To what does this sentence apply? It applies to watashi, me. Tricky sentence. It's actually a mind-numbingly easy sentence to translate. It's just that, can you see how different the grammar is? Japanese expresses ideas differently than English does. Okay, so continuing on, we have the wa particle number 1. Watashi wa cheeseburger ga miemasu. The verb miemasu means able to see, which is what we call the potential form of the verb. So notice how we say cheeseburger ga miemasu. Wait a second, Evan. I thought you told me that cheeseburgers are the subject if it's a ga. You're right, it is a subject. Cheeseburger ga miemasu. Well, wouldn't that mean that cheeseburgers are able to see things? Well, you'd think that, but Japanese expresses ideas differently than English does. What we're saying here is that cheeseburgers are able to be seen, so to speak. Notice how that almost sounds like we're making it passive. The I eat cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers are eaten by me. I can see cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers can be seen. This isn't really the passive, but it is, but it isn't, but it is, but it isn't, but it is, but it isn't. It's really the potential. Japanese's potentials, able to do something, and their passives, cheeseburger was eaten by me, are expressed very similarly. In fact, the group 2 verb conjugation for able to see and the group 2 verb conjugation for the passive, the be able to be, or was eaten, are the same. In English, we call them different things because we don't express things the same way that Japanese language does. Let me drive this into your brain again. I'm slapping my hand against my other hand, even though you can't see me doing that. We express ideas differently than Japanese people do. You need to get your head around the fact that able to be seen is almost an adjective. Cheeseburgers are able to be seen. It's almost impossible to translate this properly because notice how I had to use the word are. There's no are in the sentence. There's no des. English can't handle this. Cheeseburgers are the subject, and they are. Oh, I just used the word are. They able to see double. It's impossible to communicate. What is this applying to? It's applying to watashi. So basically, we have to translate this as I can see cheeseburgers. Notice how English forces the subject to be the wa particle. Once again, the wa particle can be the subject when we have one of these compound weird sentences. And that's not because watashi is the subject. It's not the subject. Cheeseburger is the subject. English forces us to make watashi the subject. It sucks because Japanese is impossible to perfectly translate to English. And it's kind of annoying for a lot of translators, but if you ask Japanese people, what's the subject of a sentence, they're going to tell you whatever comes before wa. At least a few that I do have told me that. And then you show them, well, what about the ga? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess ga is also the subject. And they have this existential crisis of having to learn what a subject is all over again. And the problem is that we don't get it. English and Japanese are different. Oh my gosh, I want to go on an 18-page dissertation about this. Anyway, are we talking about me? Cheeseburgers are able to be seen, and even this R shouldn't be there. Oops. Even this R shouldn't be there. Just English forces me to do that. Ga shows us the subject, which forces us to examine the fact that A, wa is really the subject, but not really. But it is, but it's not. It also examines the fact that verbs are adjectives to some degree. Notice, if English, we have to say cheeseburgers are able to be seen, or actually it should be cheeseburgers, quote unquote, are able to be seen. We have to examine the fact that this is almost an adjective in English. Alright. Hopefully that helps you out. The ga is the subject. Watashi shows, wa shows us to what the rest of the sentence applies to. Cheeseburgers are able to be seen? Well, we're talking about me being able to be see them. You know, what are we talking about with able to be seen cheeseburgers? Me. I am able to see cheeseburgers. Okay, let's continue on. The wa particle definitively tells us to what does the sentence apply. I explained this in like the second slide or something like that. So it can't be used with question words. We call question words interrogatives, okay? It can't be used with interrogatives. It can't be used with question words. Notice the first sentence. Dare wa pizza o tabemasu ka? No. Doko wa ii desu ka? No. I'm sure some language geek is going to tell me there's a way to use these, but just as a rule of thumb, we don't do this. And I'm talking 95% of the time. There's probably some crazy situation where it could apply. Dare wa pizza o tabemasu ka? No, ignore dare wa for now. Just ignore this. Just say pizza o tabemasu ka? Will some subject eat pizza? To whom does this sentence apply? Why, it applies to who? What? Pizza o tabemasu ka? Will you eat pizza? Will something eat pizza? Will you, who? Who? It doesn't work. We can't apply eat pizza to who. It doesn't it doesn't tell us who eats pizza, and we need to have a who there. I mean, if someone's name was Dare, it would work, but that would be a ridiculous thing to name your son. Imagine if your name was Who. Like, oh my god. Well, I mean, and that's, I guess, the joke of that evidence. Is it Abbott and Costello with the who's on first? Anyway, the second one, Doko wa ii desu ka? Something is nice, and we want to know what it is. What is nice? Well, we're saying Doko wa. Where is nice? What? Wait, no, we're not. What? It doesn't work. Don't use wa with interrogatives because Doko wa ii desu ka? Man, that place is nice, I'm asking you. But that place is where? So where, I'm asking you, is nice? But no. What? Huh? No, it doesn't work. Some place is nice, doko wa, and we're applying the place is nice to where? Now don't get me wrong, was can happen in questions, they do all the time. They can't come after interrogatives. You'll see that in the wa particle number 2 that we can almost translate wa as what about X? Thus, this illustrates why it can't follow question word interrogative if you must. Oh, this illustrates why I can't follow a question word. Interrogative if you must. Toi, if we have to call it by its proper name. Blah. Dare wa translates to what about who? Say what? Hopefully you'll see that this doesn't make sense. Hey, what about who? What about Jimmy? Oh, that works. What about Steve? That works. What about pizzas? That works. What about Spider-Man? That works. What about X-Men? That works. What about who? Huh? Say what? It doesn't work. So taking that and going back, I just went back a slide. Forward, back, forward, back. Pizza o tabemasu ka? What about who? What about who eats pizza? Huh? No, it doesn't work. What about where is nice? What about where is nice? I guess in that sentence in English we translate where as in like a quality as opposed to a location. Okay, so once again, in the next wa video that I make, dare wa we'll learn doesn't make any sense because the wa particle can also mean what about this, what about that, what you talking about. Oh, that's right, that's today. Today is what you talking about. The next particle number 2 is going to be what about X? Okay, this is just me venting. Despite what some people are going to tell you and what some people have told me very angrily over the internet, the wa particle can and does appear in the same sentence more than once in a similar usage. You can have the wa particle upwards of, I don't even know how often. Like in the same clause, it can almost exist twice or 3 times. So here's the thought experiment that I want to run you through. Imagine there's a room with a witness, with a bunch of witnesses, or a single witness and an interviewer. So like a police lineup or something like that. We're trying to determine which of the 4 suspects ate the cheeseburgers. Okay, the interviewer is asking the witness which of these 4 dudes ate a hamburger or a cheeseburger. in the midst of the conversation, the need might come up to specify that we're talking about Evan, not the other four suspects, but we're talking about specifically Evan, one of the four suspects. And it might also be important in the same sentence to specify that he ate pizza, but not a cheeseburger. Like, if we want to say the sentence, well, Evan, oh, you're talking about Evan? Well, he ate a cheeseburger, or he ate a pizza, but not a cheeseburger. Saying that sentence requires you to use wa twice. Many native speakers are going to tell you, no, but it's true, and I've heard it before, and people don't like to be told this, but you can use the wa twice. Evan-san wa pizza wa tabemashita ga. Evan-san wa pizza wa tabemashita ga. So Evan, as opposed to the other suspects, did eat the pizza as opposed to the other foods in question, but this sentence can and does exist. It is valid. People will tell you, well, you should use a ga there. And, I mean, they're right. You could use a ga there, but you can also use the wa particle. The wa sounds weird. That doesn't change the fact that the wa has a function in the language and that function is to separate it from other things. I can show you textbooks that teach it, that do this. The JSL textbooks, one of the most, in my opinion, one of the best explanations of grammar. I can show you sentences in native writing that do this. So just when somebody tells you that there needs to be only one wa in a sentence, that's patently false, demonstrably false, logically false, and translatably false. So people say the first wa is unnecessary, and more than often than not, they'd be right. Like I just said, it could be a ga there, but if we're trying to emphasize the fact that Evan is the one who eats pizza as opposed to other things. Evan, as opposed to other suspects, eats pizza as opposed to other foods. We need to have two was there. It's annoying and people hate it, but it's true. However, this does not change the fact that the sentence can be said, it does make sense, and it would occasionally need to be said. So I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this on El Interneto, but whatever. Anyway, that's about it. Apparently I am Canadian. So that's about it for round one of the wa particle. Check out Evan's Easy Japanese for more information. Donations are more than welcome. Have yourself a holly jolly rest of the week or whatever it is. See ya!